Hey everyone, welcome back to this week's video on Genshin Impact translation differences. I finally got my Beidou up to friendship level 10, so I figured I'm going to go ahead and make a video on her, since she was also very featured in the most recent update. So the title, Uncrowned Lord of the Ocean, the uncrowned part is correct. Mian is a crown, and specifically a crown from period dynasties where they have like the bead curtains and stuff, I think. The difference here is Longwang. Longwang actually means Dragon King or King of Dragons. In Chinese mythos, it's very common for dragons to be related to water, oceans, or river. For example, in the very famous book Journey to the West, there is a Donghai Longwang, the Dragon King of the Eastern Sea. So I think the better or the more accurate translation here would be Uncrowned Lord of the Dragons or the Uncrowned Dragon King, something like that. Step aside, Khaleesi. The constellation Victor Mare, I think the Latin is Conqueror of Oceans. And this one's interesting because you have to dig a little bit further into her story to kind of get more out of Haishan. Dantian Haishan, if we just do it literally, is the southern skies, ocean, and mountains. But also, Haishan is the name of the monster that she fights. I think it's supposed to be a dragon or something. So the title here should be Haishan, Nantian Haishan should be the Haishan of the southern skies, which could imply there might be a northern one or someone or more of them in either direction of where we're going. So there might be more than one Haishan. I also want to talk about one more honorific that she has, or title that she has, among other in game characters, but it doesn't get translated because English doesn't have an equivalency of this. I also kind of wonder if it has any kind of cultural concept of this built into its language. And by that I mean her title is 大姐头, 大姐头 is a honorific normally used for a woman who is around your age, maybe slightly older, should be slightly older, but she could also still be younger, and is the leader of a group or organization. The title, when you separate it, is 大姐, which is big sister, and 头, which is head, but is really probably shortened from 头目, which is like leader or something like that. So the title that Kazuha says to her in his PV is 大姐头, and a lot of other characters in Mandarin will also call her 大姐头, is a combination of both love and respect because they respect her as a leader, but they also feel like that she's the big sister that they can count on.
If you ever want to trade tactics, I'm always ready.
想切磋的话，我随时奉陪。
This one has two very commonly used phrases in wuxia dramas and stuff like that. 切磋 and 奉陪, which is generally part of 奉陪到底. 切磋 is actually really just means to spar, and even the title says sparring, so I don't know why the English says if you want to trade tactics. She says, I'm always willing to accompany you if you want to spar. And 奉陪到底 is a phrase that you'll hear sometimes in a lot of dramas. Usually it means when someone says it in a very angry tone, means like I'm gonna fight with you until the end, that kind of deal. So even though the meaning, the literal meaning of feng pei means to like be like a courteous way to say accompany, it could also be used in a very antagonizing way, if that makes sense.
I'm the captain, so you can be my first mate, deal? Such names are too outdated for you, huh? We'll call each other whatever you wish then.
我是老大，你是我兄弟，没问题吧？哈，这些叫法太老土。行，那就按你喜欢的方式叫吧。
All right, so it's not captain and first mate here. 老大 is a very commonly used phrase for boss or leader. Even when I was working in some other Chinese companies, like, 哎，叫你老大 is like, hey, tell your boss. That's all it means. Like, your 老大 is the person you like report to directly, right? And 兄弟 in this case means like brothers, but it's more like more like camaraderie brother and not like older brother, younger brother. Not also definitely not first mate.
Privately, Ganyu and I get on like a house on fire. But as you know, she's the secretary to the Liu Qixing, and I'm not exactly in their good books right now. Doesn't bother me, but I wouldn't want to put Ganyu in a difficult position. So just keep what I said between us, yeah?
我和甘雨那丫头私交不错，但你也知道，她是璃月七星的秘书，七星不待见我，那可不是一天两天了。哼，我倒是无所谓，要连累了那丫头可不行。对外还是保密的好。
So two quick things. The first one, the English one says they get along like a house on fire, but in Mandarin, Beidou just says we get along fine, not bad, 不错. The second one I want to bring a little bit more attention to is the phrase yato. The way Beidou calls Ganyu yato means that she puts herself in a more quote unquote, I guess like elderly position, like a more senior position than Ganyu. So she sees herself as like Ganyu's elder because she's using this honorific. I wouldn't even say it's honorific, it's more of like a way to refer to a younger girl. But she's using it in such a caring way that it makes it feel like that she's again like the dajito, the older sister figure to Ganyu. You can also use yato in like a more like disciplinary way, I guess, if it's coming from your parents. That could come off as one of those like, oh, my mom's yelling at me kind of deal. But in this case, it shows that Beidou views Ganyu more or less like a little sister, someone that she has to like take care of and protect.
You want to know why I help the common folk? Why not? Everyone has their low points in life. I don't really do anything other than help steer those who are truly lost towards a brighter future.
问我帮助平民的用意？哈，哪有什么用意不用意的？谁的人生还没有个低谷？我的帮助是小事，但对他们而言，迈不迈得过去那道坎儿，可能就是两条路啊。
So this line right here, I think they wanted to avoid some more like morbid implications. The last part, 迈不迈得过去那条坎, is whether or not they can make it across that bar, right? She's talking about people who have hit very low points in their life and whether or not they can make it to the next step or make it over that bar. She says maybe there's only two choices, right? And that doesn't make it across to the English, but I think she's implying certain very bad outcomes if she doesn't help.
I have many brothers that sail with me. I have asked and remember why each and every one of them came on board. You, however, are special. I know you still have your own things to deal with, and as such, I won't try to rope you into coming on board permanently. But remember, there is always a place for you on board the Alcor.
追随我的兄弟有很多，我问过，我也记得他们每一个人上船的理由。你是很特别的。我知道你还有需要完成的事情，我不会授予你职务和头衔，但无论你的旅途去往何方，死照星号上永远都有你的位置。
I think in this one, instead of rope you into coming on board permanently, she's saying, I'm not going to give you a job or a title.
I like food with robust flavors. Spicy fried meat or spicy tofu are my favorites. Sitting down to a big, hearty meal together where everyone can fill their bellies. Now that's when things get lively. All right. All this talk is making me hungry.
我喜欢味道重的菜，什么炝炒肉片呐、麻婆豆腐啊，我就很喜欢，能填饱肚子。大家围坐一圈一起吃的时候，气氛也会变得火热火热的。说的我都想去吃一顿了。
So the food part, they didn't point out the specific style of cooking or the specific food she really likes in the English one. So there's two. 炝炒肉片. 炝炒 is a Sichuan style way of doing a stir fry. Uses a lot of pepper, peppercorns, garlic, high heat, oil, and then you cook it really fast. That's how that one's done. And mapo tofu. If you've been around any other Chinese people, you may know mapo tofu. That's what that is. And for some reason, we don't have mapo tofu in the game. So maybe we can get mapo tofu in the game at least. That'd be great. Thanks.
We're making progress. Let's crack open a bottle to celebrate.
这满载而归的滋味儿，开瓶美酒来庆祝吧。
For this ascension line, she uses 成语满载而归. 满载而归 means to like fill up your coffers and then return home. So it's not even like we're making progress. It's that she's already successfully gone on a campaign, got a bunch of loot, and is coming back and ready to celebrate. So 满载而归. So a little bit earlier, I mentioned her title 大姐头 and how that relates to Beidou in her relationship with others. In this one, the people say 北斗姐. So instead of calling her 大姐头, this is 北斗姐. It could be that these people are not necessarily members of her crew, so they're not using 大姐头, but they do still feel a sense of closeness and respect to Beidou. So they add 姐, which means older sister, to the end of her name as a sign of respect. We see the uses of 姐 again in Character Story 4. Xiangling is on the boat, and Beidou tells her crew to call her Xiangling 姐, even though Xiangling is likely younger than most of them, but they still call her Xiangling 姐as a sign of respect. In English, they decided to use the term madam, which is, I think, creating too much of a difference in both social hierarchy and also between like the familial or the familiarity between the people. So I don't really know if there's a good English equivalent to bring over like the jie and then the ge or like the shong, like all like the familial terminology that we use in Mandarin. There's no equivalent when we bring it over as an honorific to English. So this one kind of actually reveals a little bit more about Ningguang because I want to talk about the lines that she uses when people ask about Beidou to Ningguang rather than Beidou herself. Ningguang says Beidou is 最好控制, which means the easiest one to control. 说清大义 means to explain very clearly or enunciate very clearly the greater good, and 道明利害, and to also be clear about the pros and cons of a situation, and then Beidou will figure it out herself. So Beidou really cares about greater good and can weigh what's good and bad, but Ningguang knows how to kind of steer her, I guess, in the sense. So maybe whether or not Beidou knows it, Ningguang is able to convince Beidou to do what she wants. In the last bits of her story in the vision and the rumors part, they talk about Haishan. Haishan is the same characters in the backstory as with her constellation, Haishan, the 19 Haishan Zuo. As I mentioned before, it means ocean mountain. And I believe the way that this monster earned its name is that when it rises out of the ocean, it looks like the ocean has formed a mountain. So it's not necessarily a name that has any meaning. It's probably a name of to just describe what people saw when they see this monster. Another small thing to note in the laborer's gossip, the English has it that Beidou has beaten Ningguang at chess. This is not the right board game they are playing. They're actually playing Weiqi or Go. And that is it for this week. Next week, we're going to go for her combat lines. Thanks again for watching these videos. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you then.